Good evening, everybody. Today, I would like to introduce our moderator, Mr. Ellen Selvaraj. He is an ISB alumni and Sigma Six Green Belt certified, and also a chartered accountant and a faculty member in various academic institutions. For example, IIM and DY Patil, etc. Now, I would hand over to Mr. Ellen Selvaraj, who will moderate the entire discussion of today. So, over to you.
For a very long time. He started off with his career with Percept. Then I think he has worked for Leo Burnett, Ogilvy Mather, and presently he is the senior brand manager for Dampur Sugar Mills. And the second panel member is Mr. Aditya Lumba, who is the joint managing director at Eco Rent a Car. So welcome, Mr. Rajat and Mr. Aditya for the panel. Okay.
Thank you.
So the first thing, one is, maybe before we go to the recruiting and the organizational culture, maybe if we can have some thoughts on how this whole employment scenario will change post the COVID era. If you can maybe give your take on that, and then we can maybe go to the recruiting as the next one. But initial thoughts on that.
So you want me to start, Mr. SL?
Yes, sir. I think I would want you to start first.
Yeah. So hi everybody, I'm Rajat this side. So yes, Mr. SL is completely true, and I'm in agreement to it when he says that the entire employment and the entire process of recruitment will change, because post-COVID period is just not about, say, coming back to a new normalcy. Basically, it is the complete dynamic change that we going to witness in the coming times. And in the past also, when we delve upon the subject of evolution of workforce, it's never the same. Like the expectations, the employees' expectations, and the ways the engagement is going to be see change with respect to now the new cultures of working from home is coming into picture, and there will be immense need of two important things. One is the safety, and as well as the security of the job, wherein every organization will have to recruit plus train people for good mental health. Otherwise people would not be able to sustain. There will be high attrition rates, there will be high recruitment costs which will start coming into picture. So, and at the same time, third important thing that I foresee in the coming times is about training the existing employees, as well as training of the new employees with respect to different kinds of technology and tools which are going to come into play. It could be the tools with respect to what IT firms are going to offer us in terms of employee engagement programs. And at the same time, there will be tools which will be developed in-house by a lot of organizations, which will be their proprietary tools to remotely engage with each other. I think broadly, these are certain things that will certainly bring about a sea change in recruitment process, as well as considering employees while picking them from the market.
Thanks, Mr. Rajat. So just a follow-on question to this, and I think you have rightly pointed out to the varying factors which will now come into the employment. How do you think will the recruiting get changed as a domain? I mean, now will people start looking at very different perspective about the employer? I mean, now considering the buzzword that you used, which has been going on in India for about 2-3 days, the mental health and working from home and technology. So do you think the recruiting would undergo a sea change in terms of what prospective employees would bring on the table?
Mr. SL, recruitment process saw a minute change before COVID periods also. Like I would say that now workforce has already become need-based, something like the Uber story, as and when you need. So from like when I say employers keeping people on rolls, now will be shifting more towards, say, contractual labor, because it is economical to both like the employee as well as employer. So something like saving of taxes bonuses from say 30% to 18% from the employee end, and savings of leave encashments and PFs and all from the employer's end. So this is one significant change when this would come into picture. Second thing is when we say about like the formats like 99 designs of fever, wherein the freelancers and pool of workforce is a new culture that is stemming in. So people would borrow from crowdsourcing kind of environment than sticking to their own talent, their own on-roll talent. Therefore the workforce at the employee level, I'm sure the competition is going to be even more stiff. It is even more going to be difficult to be in their work surroundings. But at the same time, it is going to open up market humongously. There's enough opportunity that is being created by these IT-based platforms. Third thing that I foresee right now is acute specialization. By acute specialization, somewhere I say in my organization only, like I have witnessed experts coming in from different kind of needs that the organization. So organization has something like zero base expert who helps our plants to say save on costs and save on to bring about minimum level of wastages. And when the whole economy is under stress of disbalance, then these kind of experts would definitely find their own space in a bigger way. We are all in the age of data sciences and machine learning and all of new say AI kind of domains. And at the same time, platforms like Udemy and Upgrad, when they are coming up in a big way to train workforces in a much more pocket friendly and much more congenial environment, where they have to not stick to their time frames, and work from home is allowing them to learn newer skills. I think the workforce environment is going to significantly change and open up newer patterns of recruitment.
Interesting. So just on the last point, the work from home is actually helping us in terms of new skills. In fact, there are some contradictory report on that in terms of work from home is not getting that effective and productive. What's your take on in this whole work from home debate which is going on in terms of productivity and learning of new skills?
Yeah, see, work from home was a scenario which we as Indians, like I wouldn't mock over Indians and their work ethics right now, but it's a small thought. Like I used to go to Canton fairs and Canton fairs in China. So it's the largest trade fair of China, wherein we used to go and procure our raw materials and our products. And the moment I used to visit any stall and come back to my hotel, I would see youngsters, males being already in my mailbox with the solutions, with proposals and all of that. But in India, the work culture is completely, I would say, a little, a bad word to use, but a little lethargic, a little non-responsive, where remote working is certainly a challenge, as you rightly pointed, because people somewhere, it is very difficult to push people remotely. So therein is where a lot of tools and a lot of technology and a lot of HR intervention will come into play. So this is where we would have, this is going to be a biggest challenge which is coming forward to us, wherein we would have to push people to stick to their timings and stick to their discipline and stick to their routine as they used to come to our offices. But at the same time, as I pointed out, mental health, which is the most overused words these days, and especially with women, like the workload has exponentially increased while working from home, when their dual responsibility now is actually their dual responsibility, along with their domestic household chores, and at the same time their work. So this is taking a toll on their health. This is certainly not going to be the right way of working and right way of approach. So I think maybe HR would devise programs like happy hours or coffee sessions, coffee session breaks, or these kind of bonding tools and sessions, or or such kind of recreational ways wherein they can take care of mental health, as well as they can take care of pushing the work at the same time.
Okay, so I mean, just to nutshell, I mean, basically the engagement level that the HR has to drive with this whole work from home is going to be pretty much tremendous in terms of work.
Tremendous, as well as very, very challenging.
Yeah, yeah. So I think there are a lot of varied crowd here in terms of MBA students and some entrepreneurs and some already working and all. So just for the people who are now going to seek employment and all, would you have any thoughts on what they should work on in terms of looking at the new recruiting change which will happen post COVID? What they should work on? I mean, I think some of the things which I've already mentioned is mental health, but it can be a very small word, but I think a lot of things to be done on that. I mean, your suggestion in terms of those people who are students and looking for employment, what they should work on so that they are far more employable, because that definition has undergone a change in the last 4 to 5 months.
So to the youngsters, especially now the HR model of while we thinking of work from home, so HR can HR even managers are much more well versed with the whole, say, result oriented approach of the employees. They can clearly visualize, they can clearly imagine the kind of, say, results that an employee can bring on table, and people whom they can forego in the times of cost cutting. So I think rather than theoretical and rather than the project MBAs that we used to do, now technical skills in terms of how well they can grasp and how soon they can grasp with technology advancements, how result oriented, how the KRAs can be mapped, and at the same time how relevant their skills can be in the coming times. Like today is the world when only two words are excessively being used in the entire industry where I am personally working on. So one is data, wherein we will be living amidst a lot of data, and second is content. So these two domains are where we are all heading towards. So even if I'm saying that sitting at home, you would be bombarded with a lot of content, be it the OTT platforms or be it your social media platforms, digital marketing, and at the same time you will be expected to surround yourselves or to work on humongous data coming in from different kinds of portals. So these two domains, I think, are going to be the new big things in the coming times.
Okay, so basically for employee, it's basically mental health, data, and content, which are maybe the buzzwords to do that. Now, sir, just switching sides, if you are a company or an employer, I mean, what are the things that you would generally now do in terms of attracting talent and recruiting them, and how would you go about to tackle this from the employer side?
Okay, so from the employer side, as I mentioned, that safety and security, both safety, security, and training and development, these three things are going to play a pivotal role in recruitment as well as in attracting the right kind of employees. Because in the phase of uncertainties and in the phase wherein we all are now becoming more health conscious, and the entire environment is about that, we can't miss on any of these three. So safety by mean use of sanitation, use of the office premises in a way which assures the safety of health of the employees as well as their families. So the conventional ways of providing insurances would not be enough. So the assurance of their health and their mental health and the safety is going to play a key role. Then the security. So there's going to be a lot of uncertainty in the coming times, and people would be feeling again aware of coming in from the mental health quotient only. Will be worried about for the people who've been laid off, and addressing the guilt of, say, survivors also. So this particular angle will be a key player in terms of how do you attract new talent. And third is training and development, wherein the existing employees will be assured of say placements and their utilization in the right way, as well as to the new employers. So something like here I recall an example of Best Buy, wherein in the times of uncertainties, as a brand who's always say made sure that people should be the technology should be accessible to people. They use their senior employees of the organization to train people, to go for in-house training programs, wherein they go out and train senior citizens of the cities, and that's how they could retain their employment. So about technological advancements also, a lot of training and a lot of their talents need to be hounded, to be taken care of, so that you can bring maximum people back from back to their offices, as well as you attract newer talent also.
Good to know. So, sir, just moving on to the next thing which was there on the agenda.
Hmm.
How do you think now? I mean, we have talked about employee side and the employer side,
Hmm.
but in toto, how do you think the organizational culture will undergo a change in terms of the way we were working, say 6 months back, and the way the things will start working in terms of, and how what culture should organization actually maintain, so that, I mean, the cohesiveness which we had when we were face to face and we were sitting besides in each other desk, that comes as an organizational culture, and how to imbibe that, because I think we have not been a very big work from home player countrywide. So if that is going to be there, then how will the organizational culture undergo a change?
See, under the organizational culture is like, yeah, I would say companies like Tata, they've invested huge amounts of resources in terms of money, energies, and time on training people towards a specific work culture, work ethic, and people working from home, and now coming into say newer dynamics of business. There is certainly going to be a humongous effort which will be start from ground zero, which is not just going to be like a minute change in the organizations, but yes, it will be a very difficult task in the organizations. First thing that comes to my mind is the mindset change. So mindset change, when it comes to mindset change, it is about let me put it in this way. Modi ji's campaign of bringing toilets is not about infrastructure. It is not about building an infrastructure, but it is about the mindset change of the country towards, one, building toilets in their houses, who still think that toilets are not auspicious for their houses, and second is to use those toilets in an effective way. So when organizational culture, it's related to social sciences. It is not related to say bringing tools, but it is about the mindset or training mindsets of the employees to use it effectively, about how those intra portals which are lying in our say desktops, which we never open in otherwise routine, but now how efficiently will you be using those intra portals to bring a similar thought process across say an organization. I am saying 10,000 plus employees. How do you build a common thing is about one. Second thing is about your personal preferences. So how do you bring those I'm talking about personal preferences here, because sanitation and hygiene is going to be now one basic need across all organizations, which shall be included as part of the culture. Now every organization has different levels of employees that coming in from different kinds of backgrounds. So how do you train people to follow a certain hygienic pattern to come to their offices, and follow certain patterns to use the common resources, and not make other person feel bad about this, is certainly going to be again a tremendous challenge, wherein unanimous decisions and unanimous thought process will become like an important need. And again, third thing is, we used to, some of the employees used to always become scapegoats and say that we are technologically handicapped, and that used to be an excuse to get over certain kind of jobs and responsibilities if you do not belong to a certain domain. Something like many of our sales forces in like category like ours, who from essential commodities, could get away without making reports on Excel sheets. But now, how do you introduce that as part of your culture, wherein everybody and the entire organization becomes part to that learning of technology and learning of those tools, about say reporting it through technology on time, and at the same time about reporting in with the help of tools is certainly again going to be the biggest challenge. So I think a lot of efforts would be required in terms of building work ethic, one in terms of hygiene and personal preferences, two, and in terms of reporting, three.
Sir, I think a very, very valid point, and I think a very right word used is mindset. And I think that is what will actually uh, drive the whole
Yeah.
employment factor in this.
Yes, Mr. SL, the country, had it been a country like Germany, wherein if you say one word and people would start following you the other day, that would have been extremely an easy, I would say, cakewalk. But in country like ours, a mindset change is a different ball game altogether.
Yeah, and with so many opinions floating around, it's really a difficult task to change the mindset. So, I mean, again, from the perspective of the people who are there in terms of job seekers, the MBAs, and all this, uh, how do you? I mean, what is your advice in terms of having the right mindset would be? I mean, how do should I mean, or maybe put it that when they are entering the door in the first day of employment,
Hmm.
how will they actually go in their minds in terms of what mindset they should carry when they are actually getting recruited and going to an employers?
So it's I come from old school, Mr. SL, on this point, because the younger generations believes in a completely different theory. But when we entered from our colleges to offices, we had only one mindset that was trained by our bosses then, that when you join a new office, you have to unlearn what you learned in your last job and have to completely come with the clean slate here, because every organization has different dynamics and every organization has different problems to be addressed. So one kind of setup cannot be say congenial to the other. So the best way to walk into an office is, because you don't choose your bosses and you don't choose the work environment. So the more rigid you are with your mindset, the more problematic it is for you and as well as for the employers also, because it takes you longer to settle down in the job. It takes you longer to unlearn and learn newer nuances of the business. It takes longer for you to change the say product categories. So till now, I got a chance to say work on varied kind of product categories, from hair care to say automobiles to smartphones, and every product category had different nuances, different ball games, different say business objectives. So had I been rigid in my mindset about the way I operate on X report, I wouldn't. It would have been become very, very difficult for me to sustain in all through these jobs.
I think very, very valid point, because I mean this is something which we similarly had, and I think the old school, even I am old school. I think went into the organization saying that okay, our boss will teach something and say to do something, we will start doing that and we will learn the job. But I think the current crop has actually a lot more knowledge in terms of technology, and I think maybe they would want to add value from the first day itself. So I think that
Exactly.
yeah.
No, that's perfectly all right. Like, we did not get chance to learn coding when we were in school. Today, kids, I'm observing kids. They're learning coding and they're learning all possible things, which making them much more relevant in the market than we were at one point of time. But at the same time, like your technical skills and your say mindset has to work hand in hand. You cannot, one cannot supersede the other. It's impossible.
I think right. Acha, by the way, I think we have Aditya Lumba on the panel now. Actually, we were supposed to have three, but for the long time, we are just having a dialogue between two of us. So Aditya has joined now. So for just people here, I mean, he is the uh, joint managing director of Eco Rent a Car, and he has joined us on the panel. So welcome, Aditya. Actually, we have been discussing few points about employment, recruiting, and all. So maybe we would like to hear your thoughts on how the whole employment and the recruiting scenario will change post COVID, and that is something which Rajat has already touched upon. But we would like to hear from you in terms of the employment and the recruiting scenario post COVID.
Hi everyone, this is Aditya Lumba. I want to firstly apologize for joining a little late because I know the call was starting at 5:30, but one of my other customer calls which started at 5 o'clock, it just finished like 2 minutes back. So I'm sorry for that. I thought it will finish in half an hour. So anyhow, now I'm here and it's a pleasure to be on this panel. So a little bit about our company. We are a ground transportation company. Been in this business for more than 47 years, started in 1973, and it's a family owned company, professionally managed. We have presence in 14 cities of our own offices, and franchisees and affiliate partners in another 80 cities all over the country. We also have a partnership with a company called Europcar, which has offices in 130 countries worldwide. So we have a strategic partnership with them. Our brand in India is operating under the name of Eco Rent a Car. We have approximately another about 500 employees, as well as we have in our system approximately 3,500 cars that we are running for our corporates, clients. Mostly all these are multinational companies or government ministries, embassies, or some tour operators and travel agents. So, as the COVID situation has emerged in the last 3 months, we have seen a huge drop in the business to the tune of more than 90%. The business has vanished from the market. Only the essential services who are operating, they are requiring certain vehicles, or people who are evacuating themselves and going back to their either going back to their country or going back from one city or one state to the other state. They are using transportation right now. Other than that, the transportation is pretty much right now not required because people are working from home. Of course, this concept of WFH, work from home, has has completely now emerged, right? So now WFH kind of is the new buzzword everywhere, because we're hearing in the media so many companies are finding it to be more productive. Some companies are saying this is more cost effective. Some companies are saying more now it is we don't need to have fancy offices, we don't need to spend on their transportation, or we don't need to spend on cafeterias, etc., etc., etc. So there are various different administrative costs which are right now getting avoided by people working from home. But I personally feel that okay, right now people are working from home as there is obviously a lockdown situation. People are scared to get out of the house, but and there is nothing to do once you go out of the house. I mean, there's no shopping malls, there are no sports, or entertainment, or friends are not meeting, things like that. Once that situation, let's say, develops for the better, in the sense COVID, we overcome the problem of COVID, then after that, work from home, I don't know if it is going to really be that productive, or because right now people are, they don't have an option than to stay indoors. But when people will have an option to go out, and then just their mind will be diverted, there will be too many distractions. So then I don't know if work from home will people will, if it will be that much productive then. So that only time will tell. But my thought process is that okay, right now, if you say my people productivity is at 10, then I think after lockdown is over and people get back to normal life, then work from home productivity might fall down to 3 or 4. So there will be a huge productivity loss then. So your question was, Pratik, about employment and how this situation is going to change how people are employed and things like that. So Of course, what we have seen right now is a huge adoption of technology. So people and virtual workspaces. So people are collaborating and working, and a lot of people are now also getting into the gig economy. So gig economy, like being a freelancer, learning a special skill, whether being a social media marketeer or getting into affiliate marketing or getting into coaching business or e-learning or
Hmm.
holding webinars as a business, things like that that they are doing right now, using using technology as a tool and developing themselves and using those skills to earn some extra revenue. So I think the gig economy is definitely going to get a boost from this COVID era, and the post COVID era. And the employment part, I think people are obviously the employers. As an employer, you will be looking at how you can in the first phase of post COVID, how you can get it's going to be like a U-shaped, kind of. They say that it's going to be like it's going to be a very gradual recovery back into the business. So
Hmm.
of course, so it's going to be a staggered growth. People are going to go into phases of recovery. So there will be step one, step two, phase one, phase two, phase three. Maybe each phase might be 6 months, 9 months phase. So people will get back into business. People will go back into consumption. People will go back into traveling
Hmm.
in a very staged, staggered manner. So I feel that accordingly, the need for manpower will also develop, and a lot of people, I personally feel, will depend on outsourcing outsourcing it to certain experts a particular job, rather than having a full-time employee in the company, because of the related costs and obligations towards a full-time employee. So to answer your question, I hope there is an answer in whatever I said right now to your question, but that is what I feel overall about this entire COVID situation.
Thanks, Aditya.
Yeah.
Also, we were also discussing on the organizational culture change which will undergo post the COVID era. I think yours is a sector which is more people dependent in terms of being physically available. But I mean, there are a lot of other sectors which are opening up which may continue with the work from home also. So just wanted to know your thoughts on how the organizational culture will undergo a change in the post-COVID era.
Is that question for me again or someone?
Yeah, we have already discussed with Mr. Rajat on that before you joined in.
Oh,
So
okay,
we already know Rajat's view on that. So if you can throw some light on what your take on the whole organizational culture thing post COVID, that would be nice.
okay, yeah. So organization culture, sure. So people are right now reading a lot. Everybody is kind of learning and watching how the world is developing. Right, there is a huge amount of pressure on businesses, uh, because there is absolutely zero revenue in most businesses. The business, the revenue has gone down by 80-90%, and companies are now under huge pressure to survive. So obviously there is a kind of, people are either there is a pay cut happening, or there is a
Hello.
I think you have gone on mute. Hello. Uh,
Yeah, I think it's gone on mute.
Aditya, you have gone on mute. Hello.
Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear
Yeah.
you now.
Now we can hear you.
Hello?
Yeah, we are able to hear now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah. Now we are audible.
Yeah, sorry, I'm talking from my phone, so I'm getting regular calls on the background. I'm sorry. So the culture, of course, so obviously, they say that culture eats strategy for breakfast, something like that, they say. So now what it really means is that, what is culture? Culture is, I feel, culture basically means uh, understanding the essence of the organization you work for, the values of that organization, which have probably come from the founders of the company or from the key employees of that company, which has actually helped that company establish itself, become successful in its domain expertise, and it is now growing. So culture is basically imbibing that culture and living that culture for the organization at every level, whether you are at a ground executive level or a managerial level or a top management level. So I feel that the culture is definitely something which really helps like companies survive in times like these. If the culture is strong, if there is a belonging to the company, if there is a emotional attachment to the company besides all your other technical KRAs and your targets and all your responsibilities and roles that are defined in your company, besides that, if there is an actual emotional contact and emotional touch with the company, and there is a mechanism uh, to review that and to quantify that, you know uh, there has to be a
Aditya, you're gone on mute again. Hello.
if somebody says my company's culture is very strong, what does that mean? What does that mean that my company's culture is very strong? How do you compare that to somebody else's culture? So it obviously comes from the fact that how that company reacts as an organization in times like these, which are unprecedented times, which are fortunate times. How does the company react to that as an organization and survive it, and then plan to thrive after the situation becomes good? Because this situation is not going to stay like this forever. There will be a time, maybe 3 months, 6 months, or 9 months. It will go again. It will come back again. The business will start again, and the economy will again go towards the growth path. But as an employee of an organization, are you with the company in times like these, hand in hand, shoulder to shoulder? Are you cooperating at every level, whether it is at the level of economics and finance, whether it is the level of you know uh, whatever the company requires that time? It requires more sales, or it requires more cost cutting, or it requires more process engineering, whatever it requires. Are you with that company hand in hand, shoulder to shoulder, to get them out of this trouble which every company is right now in today? So that is what actually culture means, according to me. And all those things, of having great HR practices, they really help in building a culture. HR practices like, whether it is celebrating somebody's success, some motivating them on a regular basis, having a personal touch with your employees and their family members, making sure you thank them for their whatever efforts and sacrifices they do towards the company. So all those things really bring that emotional bonding, and that has to be a part of it has to be something which gets driven from the very top. You cannot have just an HR department or just an department in a company build a culture in an organization. It is something which you can feel when a person speaks to you. You know it, that if whether he's reading it out of a management book or whether he's speaking from his heart. So that is the culture, and I feel that a culture is extremely important for any organization, especially when the going gets tough. Thanks.
Thanks, Aditya, for the insight. We have already heard from Mr. Rajat Arora on the recruiting culture, and now we have heard from Aditya. If anyone has got any questions, we have got maybe a few minutes for taking questions. If anyone has any questions, then you can air out your questions, and please refer to the speaker that you are pointing the question to.
Okay, I think there are no questions. So even on what Mr. Lumba had suggested about the say opportunities in the next say COVID period, I would like to add on to it that even the opportunities in the market tend to happen at two levels: one with the government intervention, and two by the creation of demand, and how companies kind of address that demand. So when we say government today, let's go by the books how they put it across. So they are identifying more than 3,000 categories, 3,000 of product categories, wherein they are saying that these products can be manufactured in house than importing from other countries. So this is like roughly more than 10 lakh crores worth of product categories. So I think there is going to be humongous demand when it comes to say the manufacturing sector, and this will also invite a lot of entrepreneurs to come into the market and create more and more employment opportunities. Second is that by how do you create, how does the market in itself creates demands, and how do companies address that kind of scenario is again a game changer. So something like in this post COVID period, I see a lot of product categories like online video calling, and the way we are saying that we're going to have in-house our own country platforms, something like a Zoom call or a Microsoft Teams, something like I'm impressed with the way cult these days is doing, from say fitness regimes to fitness diets consultants, and online say practitioners, medical practitioners giving online advices, online consultation, which is going to be the next big thing. Then subscription model for something like Shamaru, Me, or Netflix and Amazon are new categories, because people wouldn't stop living. People would find newer ways to entertain themselves, and some dead categories like say dishwashers and vacuum cleaners, even sanitizer for that matter, which are going to be dead categories. As MBA graduates, as employees, as entrepreneurs, we all need to identify the right pick for ourselves. Existing entrepreneurs, existing somebody like Mr. Aditya, who's already into entrepreneurial model. How do you use your existing models to say find newer opportunities in the market? I'm impressed with the way like Swiggy and Domino's have used their existing infrastructure to create say to supply essential commodities, to create that kind of say opportunity for themselves, wherein now they've started to supply groceries also, or for that matter bigger brands like Ralph Lauren or Alan Solis or Louis Philippe, who like happily producing masks without even thinking about the imagery that they've been into the market for say their premiumness and their kind of things. So I think it's not going to be dark. It's not going to be. It is certainly going to be challenging, of course, with the newer demands. But it is not going to be dark when it comes to the employers, employees, and opportunities.
Thanks, Rajat. Aditya, there is a question for you, if I can target to you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, actually, it's a question again from your namesake. There is another Aditya in the group who wants to ask the question that will there be a disruption in the cultural trends that company have been following earlier, or will that remain, or that will remain continued, or it will get disrupted to a large extent? That's the question for you.
Sorry, what's the question again?
So the question is that the earlier cultural trends which a company was following, which will it get disrupted to a large extent, or will they continue as it was earlier?
The way an organization will react to this COVID pandemic will determine whether the culture is going to become better or it's going to become worse. It totally depends on how the organization reacts towards its three key stakeholders. And the three key stakeholders are A, company's employees, B, company's customers, and C, the company's vendors and their partners. So definitely, whatever the way how you have reacted to those people, whether if you have delayed the vendors payments, then obviously your culture will suffer. If you have not been fair to your employees, then your culture will suffer. If you have not kept in touch with your customers, then your culture will suffer. So these three stakeholders, you have to take care of them during this pandemic as an organization, as a responsible organization, and then the culture will come out as a better culture. But if you have suffered anywhere, then if you have not done one of these three things, then that will have a negative impact. That's what I feel. Thanks.
Thanks a lot. So I believe there are no more questions, and people were able to benefit from the talk. So while we got only a glimpse of Aditya because he joined a bit late, but I think he has put across his points on all the things that we already discussed with Mr. Rajat. So
Yeah.
thanks a lot.
I want to really thank you all right now. I'm sorry I have to leave right now because I'm getting some urgent calls and I have another meeting. So I'm so sorry. I only joined for 20 minutes, but it's a pleasure talking to you all, Prateek, and thank you for organizing this. Thank you for inviting me here. And I hope that everyone keeps well and healthy. And I'm sure we'll all come out stronger. Thank you so much. Keep in touch.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. With that, I mean, I would like to thank Mr. Rajat Arora for taking time out, and I also like to thank all the participants for taking time out on an evening and coming for the panel. And thanks a lot to Bharat Biz, Gaurav, Prateek, and Apurva for coordinating this and having us. With that, thanks a lot, and we will like to end the panel with that.
Thank you, Mr. SL. Thank you, Prateek. Thank you, Bharat Biz. It was lovely talking to you. Hope we'll get more questions and more knowledge sharing sessions very soon. And it's just a dark cloud will pass away very soon.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, everyone.
Yeah.
Stay safe. Bye.